The Tale of the Battalion Boot. It was a quiet evening at the Marine Corps base, the kind of evening where the crickets chirped in rhythmic patterns and the air held the scent of pine and polished brass. But for Sergeant Vince Carter, the peace was merely a facade for a growing, metallic nightmare. He stood in the middle of the barracks, his face a mask of concentrated frustration, staring down at his right leg. Or rather, he stared at what had become of his right leg. Gomer Pyle, with his wide, innocent eyes and a smile that could light up a dark hangar, stood beside him. Private Jackson was there too, looking on with a mixture of pity and suppressed amusement. "Vince, what happened to your foot?" Gomer asked, his voice full of genuine concern. Sergeant Carter let out a breath that sounded like a tire leaking air. "My foot," he repeated, his voice rising an octave. "Yeah," Gomer said, leaning in. "You mean this foot?" Yeah, Carter snapped, gesturing wildly at the massive, heavy object encasing his limb. "What happened?" "Well," Carter began, trying to maintain some shred of dignity despite the circumstances, "a large thing landed on it." "No kidding," Gomer widened his eyes. "What was it?" "Well, it was a big lead thing," the sergeant explained, his jaw tight. "Lead?" Gomer asked, fascinated. "Yeah, this big lead thing," Carter groaned. "Boom, right on my foot." "Well, I will be darned," Gomer remarked, shaking his head in disbelief. "How long do you have to wear that thing?" "Well, the sergeant is on his way to get that taken care of right now," Carter said, referring to himself in the third person as he often did when under extreme duress. "But the hospital is a long way, Vince. How come you did not drive?" Gomer scratched his head, thinking back to their journey. "Yeah, how come we did not drive?" "Well, we, exercise," Jackson chimed in, trying to help the sergeant save face. "The doctor said he is supposed to exercise us, Sarge. Yeah, walk around on it so I do not get stiff." "Hey, Vince, where are you going?" Gomer called out as Carter started hobbling in the opposite direction. "The hospital is this way." "Oh, yeah, that's right," Carter muttered, pivoting on his good heel with a clink. "The hospital is that way. I forgot. Can you imagine that?" The trio made their way toward the maintenance area, specifically the metal shop, hoping for a quick liberation from the leaden weight. However, as they approached the heavy doors, the silence of the building was deafening. "It is 16:45, Sarge," Jackson noted, checking his watch. "They are gone." "Gone?" Carter roared, the sound echoing off the corrugated metal walls. "What do you mean, gone? Why would they go so early?" "Suppose there is an emergency," Gomer suggested helpfully. "What kind of emergency can you have in a metal shop?" Carter demanded. This is an emergency. Maybe we could borrow a little saw from the hobby shop?" Gomer offered, his mind always searching for a neighborly solution. "Forget it, Pyle," Carter barked. "I ain't about to let you two dummies close to me with anything sharp. Come on, let's go." "Well, don't worry about it, Sergeant," Gomer said, ever the optimist. "The Science Metal Shop said they would be open at 7:30 in the morning. Don't worry. The ceremony is at noon. How do I know how long it is going to take them to get this thing off and get it welded back together again?" Carter complained, his anxiety peaking. Oh, it is that sore. All that pulling and tugging, it is really swollen in there, Sarge." "That is right," Gomer agreed, nodding sagely. "It will feel a lot better in the morning, Sergeant, after the swelling goes down." "Don't be an idiot, Pyle," Carter hissed. "I ain't going to bed with this thing on. We gotta get it off tonight." "But as long as your foot is swollen in there, it won't come off," Gomer pointed out the obvious. "Then we will just have to get the swelling down," Carter declared, his eyes narrowing as a plan formed. "Hey, that is it. What do you do when you sprain your ankle? You put ice on it, and that takes the swelling down. We can't put any ice on your foot because it is inside your foot. It takes it down when we cool me off. And we will do that in the coldest place I know, the freezer in the mess hall." The mess hall was dim and shadowed, the silver surfaces of the kitchen reflecting the moonlight streaming through the high windows. Inside the massive walk-in freezer, Sergeant Carter sat on a crate of frozen peas, draped in heavy blankets, his head covered by thick earmuffs. "He has been in there about 20 minutes," Gomer whispered to Jackson as they stood outside the heavy insulated door. He should be about done. We had better check it. Gomer pulled the handle and stepped into the icy mist. Sergeant Carter, are you all right? The sergeant did not move. He can't hear you, Jackson noted. The earmuffs. Gomer leaned closer, shouting. Sergeant Carter, does it feel like it is loosening up any? Yeah, I think so. Carter's voice came back muffled and shivering. Try it again, Gomer encouraged. Yeah, I think I felt it slip a little bit, Carter said, his teeth chattering. Just leave me alone a few more minutes, and it will come right off. Right, Sergeant, Gomer said, preparing to close the door. Suddenly, the heavy outer door of the mess hall creaked open. Heavy boots thudded against the floor. Who is in there? A gruff voice demanded. It is Hacker, Gomer hissed, his eyes wide with terror. Mercy, what are we going to do? Jackson, we've got to get out of here, Gomer panicked. Open the back door. I will get the Sarge. Sarge, quick. It is Sergeant Hacker. We have got to get out of here. Sergeant Hacker is coming in. Hacker, we have got to get out of here. Carter scrambled up, his frozen joints protesting. Right. Use the back door slot. Is that your back there, Jackson? Gomer whispered as they huddled in the shadows near the rear exit. We are trapped. I can't let him see me with his boot on, Carter whispered harshly, referring to the battalion trophy boot that he was currently wearing as a makeshift cast. You guys tell him you stopped him for a snack or something. Carter ducked back into the freezer, but in his haste, he kicked his foot against a crate. The lead boot slid off his numbed foot and clattered onto the floor. It was empty. Carter didn't have time to grab it. He scrambled out the back just as Sergeant Hacker rounded the corner. Slater, Pyle, what are you two doing here? Hacker demanded, shining a flashlight on the two privates. Well, we were hungry, and we decided to have a little midnight snack, Gomer said, his voice trembling with the effort of telling a half-truth. You what? Hacker growled. Well, you see, we haven't really, Gomer started to explain. This is a Marine Corps mess hall, not your mother's kitchen, Hacker interrupted. You want a snack, you will have it with 200 other guys at breakfast. Now get out of here before I have you both thrown in the brig. Right, Sarge, Gomer said quickly. Come on, go. Good night, Charlie. Once they were safely outside and huddled behind a supply truck, Carter rounded on Gomer. It is where, Sarge? In the freezer, Gomer replied sheepishly. Well, you didn't expect me to carry it out right in front of him, did you? Carter snapped. Go get it, Pyle. But Sergeant Hacker just told us to get out of there, or he would have us thrown in the brig, Gomer reminded him. Just get the boot, Pyle, Carter ordered. Gomer sighed and trudged back into the mess hall. He found Sergeant Hacker still standing near the freezer, looking suspicious. Hey, Sergeant Hacker, Gomer said softly. What do you want, Pyle? Well, sir, to tell you the truth, I came back to get that boot, Gomer admitted. Oh, you did, huh? Hacker crossed his arms. Well, suppose you just tell me what the battalion booby boot is doing in my freezer in the middle of the night. Well, sir, Sergeant Carter left it in there, and he sent me back to get it, Gomer explained. I know he left it in there, Pyle, Hacker said, his voice dripping with skepticism. But what was he doing in there with it? Well, sir, Gomer hesitated. Give it to me straight, Pyle, or I will have you thrown in the brig for trespassing where you don't belong, Hacker threatened. Well, sir, he was wearing it, Gomer blurted out. Huh. Hacker blinked. Well, you see, what happened was I accidentally put my foot into it, and we just had an awful time getting it off, Gomer explained earnestly. Then I guess Sergeant Carter got kind of curious and wondered if he could put his foot in and get it out. You're kidding, Hacker said, a slow grin spreading across his face. No, sir, Gomer continued. I guess there is just something about that big old empty boot that just kind of makes people want to put their foot in it, maybe out of curiosity. Yeah, well, I'm not drawn and I'm not curious, Hacker laughed. So suppose you just beat it now, Pyle. Well, Sergeant Hacker, could I have the boot back? Gomer asked hopefully. No, Pyle, Hacker said, picking up the heavy metal boot. I am going to give it to the colonel, so he can give it back to Sergeant Carter. But the colonel is going to ask me where I got it, so I am just going to tell him what you just told me. Back at the hiding spot, Carter was pacing. What is taking him so long? Maybe he got locked in the freezer. I ain't that lucky, Carter muttered. Gomer appeared through the shadows, looking dejected. Where's the boot, Pyle? Carter demanded. Sergeant Hacker has got it, Gomer reported. Hacker has got it? Carter's face went pale. When I opened the freezer door there, he was standing with it in his hand, Gomer said. Why didn't you ask him for it? Carter groaned. Well, I did, but then he asked me how it got there, Gomer said. And? Well, since I could not tell him a lie, I told him, Gomer admitted. You told him? Carter grabbed his own hair. Pyle, now I got to go back in there, and I got to beg him to give me that boot back and to keep his mouth shut, or I will never be able to show my face to the NCO club again. All right, Pyle, I'm going to get that boot back, and this time I ain't going to put your foot in it, I am going to stuff all of you in it. Carter marched back into the mess hall. He found Hacker sitting at a table, the lead boot sitting prominently in the center. Charlie? Carter started, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Yes. Hacker looked up, smugness radiating from him. Look, Charlie, we have known each other for a long time, right? Carter began, leaning on the table. I mean, I know we have had our differences, but something like this boot thing, well, it is like Pyle said, I was the victim of circumstances. It could happen to anybody. Look, Charlie, if you give me the boot back and promise not to say anything, I will give you anything. Anything? Hacker asked, his eyebrows shooting up. You name it, Charlie, Carter promised. Okay, Hacker said, standing up and sliding the boot toward Carter. Neither one of us says anything about this business, and you have got a deal. Oh, thanks, Charlie, Carter sighed with relief. Thank you. What do you want? Help me get it off, Hacker said, pointing down at his own leg. The room went silent. Carter looked down. There, firmly encased in the leaden battalion trophy boot, was Sergeant Hacker's right foot. I had him, Carter whispered to himself, a mixture of horror and realization dawning on him. I had him right where I wanted him, and I let him off the hook. Why didn't you stop me? Oh, we didn't know, Sarge, Gomer said, appearing at the doorway. Who figured he would be dumb enough to? Gomer stopped himself. Watch it. Don't you think we had better check on Sergeant Hacker? Gomer asked after another 20 minutes had passed with Hacker now taking his turn in the freezer. He has been in there a pretty good half hour. Yeah, I guess you're right, Carter sighed. All right. As they approached the freezer door, it swung open. But it wasn't Hacker who stepped out. It was a high-ranking officer. Oh, Lieutenant Anderson, Carter stammered, standing at attention. Good evening, sir. Oh, it is you, Sergeant Carter, Anderson said, looking at the group. What are you and your men doing here at this time of night? Well, sir, Carter began, searching for a lie that wouldn't involve a freezer. Not much longer, Vince, a voice called from inside the freezer. I am freezing at that. Sergeant Hacker? Lieutenant Anderson asked, peering into the cold mist. Yes, sir, Hacker said, hobbling out, the lead boot still firmly attached to his leg. It seems I got my foot caught in his boot, sir. I was just trying to get it off. Thank you, Sergeant, Anderson said, a strange smile on his face. For what, sir? Hacker asked, confused. Well, at our staff meeting this afternoon, we could not decide whether your platoon or Sergeant Carter's was going to get this award tomorrow, Anderson explained. I think you have just broken the tie. Good night, gentlemen. The lieutenant turned to leave, then paused. By the way, what makes you men think sitting in a freezer is going to help him get that boot off? Oh, it will work just fine, sir. Gomer piped up, his face beaming with helpfulness. Same way we got it off Sergeant Carter just a while ago. The way you got it off Sergeant Carter? Anderson's eyes widened. Tell me about it, Pyle. Sergeant Carter closed his eyes and leaned his head against the cold metal wall. I think we may be all tied up again, he muttered. Gomer started talking, his voice filled with the simple joy of sharing a story. Golly, sir, it all started when that big lead thing landed right on Vince's foot. The night stretched on, a chorus of laughter and military blunders echoing through the mess hall, proving once again that in the United States Marine Corps, even a lead boot could lead to a golden moment of camaraderie.